Let's go through these teams. First 4 weeks. What do you expect out of them? Atlanta's a hard one to pick, isn't it? I mean, they're coming here. That's always tough to come here.
I think I picked the Vikings to win that game.
I would too, but Atlanta last year was one of the best offenses in the NFL. They had a putrid defense because they got everybody hurt. So now their defense is going to be back, and their offense still has a ton of weapons, still has Julio Jones. The last time the Vikings played Atlanta was down there, and Julio Jones got shut down by Xavier Rhodes. I'm not sure this is the same version of Xavier Rhodes as it was in 2017. It's a great game to start with because I want to find out what Atlanta looks like. And I'm not sure that's one that you just pencil in for sure as a win.
Is Atlanta traditionally a slow starter? I feel like I want to say they've been slow starters in the past.
They were last year, and then I think they won some games. It kind of got going, but then faded toward the end. I mean, 2 years ago, they were what? Was it 12-4?
Yeah.
When they lost in the playoffs, when Julio Jones kind of mistimed his jump against the Eagles. And the Eagles also had a pass bounce off somebody and turn into a reception. That's what Nick Foles needed to win that game. And the year before that was when they went to the Super Bowl. So they've really been a pretty competitive team over the last few years. So I don't know. Tell me what you think of these first 4 games.
All right.
Not just Atlanta, but do you say if you don't go 3-1 that it's kind of a failure? Atlanta, Green Bay, Oakland, Chicago?
I think 2-2 is fair to expect. Green Bay and Chicago, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but division games are always tough, and the Bears were a very good football team last year. I think the Packers will rebound nicely this year if LaFleur is even just a competent NFL head coach and they have some new life breathed into him. By that hire, I think that's a much improved football team. I think their defense took some steps forward last year, and they gave Mike Pettin some pieces to work with to add to that defense that already was headed in the right direction. We know what Aaron Rodgers is. Those are 2 tough games and 2 division games. I don't necessarily pencil those in as wins. They're winnable. All 4 of those games are winnable. But if you come out of them 2-2, I think that you feel pretty good about yourself after the first quarter of the season.
What's really interesting to me about this first section of the season is Judd and I were talking off the air about this, where you feel like when you go into the year that you've got a good sense for what those teams will be that you play early. And then as you go along, if we were trying to say, hey, what about that week 15 game against Los Angeles? Well, we don't even know. I mean, is Phillip Rivers even still playing at that point, or what they look like? If they had a great season, if they had a bad season, so hard to tell. But you feel like you know the teams that you start with. And I don't feel like I know 3 of these teams. I think I know 1. I think I know Chicago and how good they're going to be. That there will be a little regression. They've got too much talent to just entirely fall off of the side of the cliff and be last in the division. They have a really good coach. They added Cordell Patterson, so their offense, I think, will keep rolling, even though Trubisky is limited to some extent. I think I know what that team is. I think they're a 10-6 type of team. The rest of them, do you have a good feel for any of these? I mean, Green Bay, yeah, you make fair arguments, but it could also be LaFleur headbutts with Aaron Rodgers and it all falls apart quick.
Or LaFleur could be a total disaster.
Right, exactly.
Like I said, he needs to me, when you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, you've said this before, if you're a competent NFL head coach, you have 7 wins in the bank.
Yep.
Just on Aaron Rodgers. Win 3 more on top of that, and you're a 10-win football team and going to the playoffs. So that's what I'm saying. If he's a competent head coach and breathes some new life into him, that's probably at least a 9-win football team. But he could be a total disaster. He might have swindled the Packers into convincing them that he was a competent NFL head coach and might not be. That's a possibility. He's never done it before. If that's the case, then yeah, that's a game you probably should win, but we don't know that.
And we also just don't know, with the injuries that Rodgers has been through the last couple of years, if he'll be 100%.
True.
Even when they play him in week 2. It just, maybe it's bad luck, but it kind of reminds me of Tony Romo, where they just started to pile up on him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so much you could do with that. There's only so much yoga and whatever else off the field that you could do once you've had a ton of different injuries, which Aaron Rodgers is starting to build them up. I don't have a great feel for what Green Bay is going to be, even though I agree with you entirely that their defense stacked up a lot of talent and should be a lot better. Atlanta, I feel the same way. They have the potential to be a very good team. I'm not sure. And Oakland is the ultimate wild card. Couldn't you see Oakland being
Yes.
good? I think that's a total possibility that they're actually good.
I think they get better as the season goes on. So I think the Vikings got them at the right part of the schedule. I think that's a team that grows and gets better deeper in the schedule. So they caught them at the right time. That's why I think that's a game you should win.
From Drew on Twitter, he says I should go see Kansas City because of Mahomes, barbecue, and the Negro League Baseball Museum.
There is the Mahomes factor. That's big to see that guy play in person.
And I read a really cool book that had great stories from the Negro Leagues, and so it's always been sort of an area of interest. My Stratomatic team is the Kansas City Monarchs.
Nice,
by the way.
Nice.
So I would love to see that. That's a compelling argument.
That is. Somebody make an argument for Dallas that's better than that at Matthew Coller.
I'm sure
Twitter.
that maybe here in the building they would make an argument for Kansas City because it's cheaper than going to Dallas. I would expect. So you think 2-2 out of these 4 games?
I'm saying 2-2 is the bare minimum. There are two games in there.
Minimum.
There are 2 games in there. I didn't mean to do that. There are 2 games in there that you definitely should win, and then there are 2 games in there that are winnable, but they're not locks.
So I want to do this throughout the week. Just at least one segment per day. There's 5 days and probably 4 segments of the season. We'll do one on playoffs or something. Just look at this
a chunk of the schedule
a little bit closer.
I like it
each day.
I like it. Do you agree with me about the Raiders, by the way, that they get better as the season goes on?
I do, because they have a lot of pieces that are going to have to figure out how they fit together. And certainly Antonio Brown and Derek Carr are going to have to figure out their chemistry. But the caveat to that would be if it doesn't go well early on and John Gruden loses some guys, that has the potential to be a powder keg. I mean, that's true. That is 3-13 mutiny potential if things don't go well right away.
That's one of those things that if it starts to unravel, it's going to happen very, very fast.
And the quarterback matchups here, I kind of do the schedule by that too. Matt Ryan, good. Has lost to the Vikings before. Mike Zimmer, but good. Aaron Rodgers, elite. Derek Carr, not that great. When you got to come here and you're not that great,
that's tough.
A lot of times it doesn't matter how good the rest of your team is. And Chicago, Mitch Trubisky 2-0 against the Vikings last year. I'm going to have to say that he's at least good enough with that offense to beat them on the road. And Soldier Field is just like the house of horrors for the Vikings.
When was the last time they won there? Do you know?
It was 2017. Case Keenum had to come in for Sam Bradford.
Oh, that's right. Yep.